What's up, everybody? Welcome to JMac Investing. My name is Jason. Thanks for tuning in to another executive interview. Have an interesting company that I wanted to take a look at. John Lee, the CEO of Flying Nickel Mining Corporation, is going to be on with us. So pretty excited to have him on. It's a little different, you hear a lot of talk about the gold miners and the silver miners, but when you think about the electrification of everything, EVs and tools, everything you can imagine is being electrified. It needs nickel. So pretty excited here to have John Lee on today. How you doing, sir?
Thank you for the invite, Jason. Good to be on your show.
Absolutely, absolutely. So why don't you just give us a little backdrop, a little background about yourself, about Flying Nickel, and then we'll move into some of these other topics.
Yes, well, Jason, I have been in the mining industry for more than 20 years. First 10 years as an investor for myself, started around year 2000, and then the latter 10 years I was running a junior mining company. And before that, I spent about 5 years in the Silicon Valley and graduated from Rice University. Much like your channel, I've done a little bit of I've done a little bit of everything. The sort of the idea of getting into mining is almost by accident, as I was semi-retired from the Silicon Valley days, and I was very lucky. And in that, I was particularly interested in nickel because my engineering background, my background is really engineering and economics, so not so much on exploration. I wasn't into gold and silver. That would be hunting needle in a haystack, and then or versus copper, which is a lot more common. And the reason for running a junior mining company is that after being investor for 10 years and after the financial crisis, I thought it would be kind of fun and to try out as a hobby to run a mining company. And little do we know, 10 years later, we've raised over $150 million on the Toronto Stock Exchange, and really primarily focused on nickel. We were built early in the nickel scene in the year 2000, before the advent of electric vehicles. But this EV industry and this EV initiative has really landed a new renaissance to the nickel market, Jason.
Very good, very good. I'm gonna throw up here on the screen. This is the info that if you want to look into Flying Nickel, it's traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange, the Venture Exchange, and the OTC. Those are the ticker symbols. So go check it out, and check and do a little bit deeper dive as well. But yeah, so I was looking over the company and what you guys are doing, and I've heard some other interviews of you as well talk about clean nickel, right? And so that appeared. I didn't even know that was a thing, but after looking over some of the reports, there's a great deal of clean nickel that has the potential to come out of this mine, right?
Yes, well, Jason, I believe before long, maybe before 2030, definitely, but maybe in the next couple of years, everything you buy is going to have what I call the nutritional table. So that will make up, so for example, automobiles, a cell phone, a speaker, computer, etc. So it's gonna tabulate the ingredient, not only the ingredients, but the origin of the parts, as well as what they call the carbon content, because everybody's emphasis on the climate change. There are primarily two ways to extract nickel. One is from the rock called the laterite, and the other one is called the sulphide. It's a lot cleaner to produce nickel from sulphide versus from laterite, and don't want to go into too much about it, but you can Google and research on that. But essentially, for a mine like Minago, owned by FLYN Nickel, the carbon emission is potentially one of the lowest in the world, and up to 99% less than the laterite counterpart that come out of the ground in Indonesia. Part of the reason is the power used to mine, extract, and process the minerals. In Canada, it's hydropower, whereas in Indonesia and in other parts of the world, it's coal-fired power plants. And you will certainly be, Jason, shooting yourself in the foot if you were to procure quote unquote dirty nickel, or nickel with very high carbon emissions, to fit into an electric vehicle for the purpose of making the world more environmentally friendly and less carbon footprint.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's going to be interesting to watch this all play out. How everything's going to be put under the microscope, essentially to move greener. And some people just don't even think about that. They think about, like you said, a lot of the current batteries and EVs, a lot of them are really consuming dirty electricity, and yeah, it's not consuming fossil fuels directly, but it could be still indirectly,
Well,
So
it's not just about feeling good. For example, when Elon Musk went out hunting for nickel all over the world, in Canada, in Madagascar, and in Indonesia, and Tesla recently did a deal with the Indonesian government to buy nickel from Indonesia, and got a very, very strong pushback from NGOs and from a number of shareholders in a petition of a letter to tell them not to do that. In addition, Sweden and the Norwegian countries have substantially increased the fee for carbon credits. So if you're in any sort of industry, you've been given a quota as to the amount of carbon you're allowed to consume. And once you exceed that quota, you either pay a penalty or you have to go out and source for carbon credits from the likes, for example, forestry in Brazil that process carbon dioxide and produce those credits. So I think besides that, it actually hits the bottom line, Jason. The Biden administration is being given out a lot or have tabled a lot of proposals for grants for the green climate change transformation, and a lot of these grants have strings attached to them. So if you're in the business of mining critical metals or energy metals, you have to make sure that again you fit into the criteria in order to receive these grants. So I think and that's the right way to go about it. It's a sort of a carrot and a stick approach to it, and not to mention that
right.
all the mining companies nowadays have to produce, especially the producers, have to produce a report, what they call the ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance report. In that, you have to detail how your operation affect the local community and also as well as the environment, Jason.
Got you. So let's talk a little bit about. I mean, let's just keep it high level, but the differentiation of what the role nickel would play in electrification in batteries, and the parts. So, but like I said, just keeping it high level. We don't want to geek out too bad, but yeah, can you talk about some of the things that nickel will be used in batteries?
Certainly. I think there's a lot of people that miss out on the ride of Tesla, and then they go and chase some other spec. Some of them you cover, and the Nikola, which is a bit of a sham rather than a real true story. And by now, there are probably more than 24 electric vehicle companies that are listed worldwide in China, in the United States, and elsewhere. The way I look at it is the battery technology has evolved a long way. Remember your camera, that used the nickel cadmium battery. And for automobiles, in the last 5 years, the technology advanced so much that has standardized what they call the MNC 811, which is a lithium battery, but with the cathode, that's nickel, cobalt, and manganese. And actually 80% of that is nickel. So I think to move to a sort of a higher level, the industry has standardized on the nickel, and that's why Elon Musk said that their batteries are actually nickel batteries, because nickel constitute majority of the metal content. That if you want the best performance battery with highest intensity, highest charge hold, and the fastest charge and the fastest discharge in energy intensity, the nickel batteries are the way to go. And these are the batteries that go into your Porsche Taycan, went to Tesla Model S Plaid. Of course, there are lesser capable alternatives that are selling at a discount. But the way I look at it, if you want best of the best, like Lamborghini versus Volkswagen, you have to get the nickel lithium batteries. And the way the research has demonstrated that the trend is going to continue for at least the next 5 years before any alternatives to the nickel batteries could potentially be found. So therefore, if you're looking to invest in a common denominator rather than cherry picking on the particular EV stock, I think nickel is an area that may be interesting to look at.
There you go. There you go. And I know people are, kind of scared off right now by the markets. It's kind of crazy out there. But markets are cyclical, and if everything only always went up, we would never have any opportunities, right? So,
Well, I am a chartered financial analyst. I'm really actually a generalist by nature. I've been investing in the stock market for the last 25 years. Those kind of things swing in pendulum, right? And I think interest rates gone from 0.25% to now 2-year treasury is yielding at around 4%. And we're towards the end of the year, typically October to year end. There is a bit of a rally. September is over. Typically, there's a very negative correlation on the stock performance in September. And I think soonest, nobody knows has the crystal ball the trajectories of long-term interest rate in the long term. But I think that given the interest rates is more than quintupled in the last 12 months, which is the fastest pace since 1980, that probably a pause maybe on the horizon that's going to spell relief in the market. Another thing just to take note is that, Jason, that commodity, gold and silver in particular, but copper, nickel, and other base metals has a very low correlation to the stock market and to the bond market. So if you're looking to diversify away from the bond market, which I probably wouldn't recommend you to get into right now because bond prices trade inverse to rising interest rates, and equities is also problematic because when you have high interest rates, that will have to the dividends have to match the higher risk-free rates. Otherwise, the price has to come down. And not to mention real estate is also problematic with the 30-year mortgage at 7%. So I think commodity offers an interesting alternative to your portfolio, and that I just recently read the average age of a portfolio manager is around 45 years old. So I think the total investable dollars in the commodity space is less than 5%. And it certainly speaks to a lot of room to grow. And you can look at kind of a bit like Bitcoins 10 years ago, Jason.
Exactly. Yeah, the markets are cyclical, commodities are cyclical, crypto cyclical. Just basically, kind of the way I look at it is just if I were to give any kind of advice to anyone, just don't be a headline investor. Try to look for the where the cycles are, and because it's not always going to be doom and gloom.
Well, Jason, you mentioned the word commodity, right? It's a bit of a cliche because it's like calling Canadians Americans American, which they're not really exactly have a whole lot in
Right.
common. And so therefore, if you're looking to diversify away from bonds and real estate and stocks into commodities, you want to pick a commodity that has some utility for the modern future. So what I mean by that is, for example, you might not want to go after coal because there's a lot of pushback on that, and you might want to go after something like lead, that is toxic, and that the lead batteries are being gradually replaced by the nickel batteries. So so if you're looking at metals that fit into the modern future and power the future, and given this electrification of the world, and not just for cars, you look at trucks, air taxis, the power consumption of the world is increasing at a steady 3 to 5% a year, compounded. I mean, where's that power? I mean, generate the power, but you gotta have to find a way to store that power. So I think nickel is one of the most promising metals based on my own research, especially for also for those that had already stashed away some gold and silver as gold bugs and silver bugs. Aside from that, it's definitely one of the metal has really found a second life, a second purpose in life, and I think that has a pretty good run up in the next 5 to 10 years to come, Jason.
That's a fantastic point and clarification on it. Yeah, because it's you could just go into an index and be it have a even proportion of all those, and some of those, as you said, are commodities that are kind of going, go maybe not going away, but they're definitely in decline,
Entire,
right?
yes.
Yeah, yeah. So good points on that, and good clarification. Because you always want to be kind of looking ahead at future trends and be into those types of plays. So that's a great point for sure. So like I was looking over, maybe it was a little bit older report, but it was last year, August of 21, about the mine, the Minago technical report from August 21, and said there's 722 million pounds of contained nickel. It's a lot, right?
Yes. Well, I think, Jason, first of all, just to preface that the project is at a permitting final feasibility stage, so it's
Right.
not yet producing.
Yeah.
And the thing is, there aren't a lot of pure nickel producers in the market. You have Vale, but that's mixed up with iron ore. You have Sherritt but that's in Cuba, and BHP. A lot of conglomerates like BHP and Glencore, and they have a lot of the other. They're a sort of a mixed producer. So I think FLYN Nickel is one of the very few leveraged nickel play that's listed on the Toronto Ventures Exchange. And in terms of resource, yeah, there's a lot of good things going for the project. One of them is resource. Over 45 million, over $50 million being spent at the project, including 100,000 meters, close to 100,000 meter drill hole, and with the resource base of around 700 million pounds of nickel in measured indicated, and a further 300 million pounds of inferred. And Jason, with the measured indicated and inferred resource added all together, that's enough nickel to supply approximately 10 million batteries in a Model 3. So you have a very well endowed resource. And just a couple other things you touch upon the green nature of the project. And because the project's open pit in very gentle topography, we can actually utilize electric shovels instead of diesel. And the project where the project is located is the Thompson nickel belt in Manitoba, with the immediate access to hydropower that further lower the carbon emission. And then third but not least is that the project is at the final permitting stage. So we expect to have a construction decision by the end of the year. And if nickel price were to have an uptick, we're looking to arrange a financing and bring the nickel to market before 2026. And that would make this project probably the first new nickel to market from a greenfield open pit project in Canada, Jason.
Yeah, that could be huge for sure. Something to consider, no doubt. So yeah, so definitely check out Flying Nickel there. Again, the ticker symbols are along the bottom of the screen. So, anything else that that you wanted to touch on about Flying Nickel, or just in general, some of the market conditions, or some of the things. Just anything that you wanted to touch on.
Well, I think, Jason, we touched up on the demand side because the advent of EV, and if we assume a 30% electric vehicle penetration rate by 2030, and that would spell for doubling the requirement for nickel. So there's a lot, we need a lot more nickel. Part of that may be stimulated with additional supply, but a lot of that's probably going to be go through the form of substitution, where your utensils may be made out of chrome and aluminum instead of made out of nickel. Um,
I got a quick question for you. So, I know a lot of people are, also, gung ho solar. Solar needs battery storage as well. Is it the same technology used in EVs, the same batteries to store solar energy to then be
yes,
used in homes?
yes.
Is it?
Solar City by Tesla, it's the same technology. It's the same technology, except it's different size, different configurations. Of course, it has a different discharge rates. So you're talking about kilowatt hours, and kilowatt hours is storage, and then you have the kilowatt, which is the discharge rate. So it's the same architecture for sure. But one thing is, Jason, let me go back to, so we understand the demand, but let's talk about the supply. Because nickel has been in decline in the supply has been in decline in the last 10 years because of the sagging nickel price, because nickel sort of that's before the talk of EV. And because of the lack of investment in new mines that have been brought into the market, the average nickel grades for open pit nickel sulphide mine is dropped 50% from 0.8% in 2005 to now 0.4% in 2020. And that grade is projected to decrease by another 50% by 2030 to 0.2%. Minago's grade is at 0.74. So it used to be maybe not, sort of the middle of the road back in 2005. But now Minago, given its grade, is a top tier nickel project based on the grades. And the story is only going to get better, and the strategic value of Minago is only going to grow as the other nickel mines being depleted at the lower grades, and that's going to put Minago at a premium. And like Warren Buffett said, you also want to have time on your side. And the way, Jason, for sophisticated investors, some of your sophisticated investors, think of FLYN Nickel as an option play on nickel. And because majority of the heavy lifting is being done, the resources being developed, the feasibility study will be published, the permitting will be granted, and is in top tier jurisdiction with access to power and water. So you're looking at a non-expiry call options on nickel has a very low carry cost. So this is I've been in the nickel industry. I've been in the nickel mining for 10 years. It's one of the best projects that I've come across, and I've done 5 or 6 nickel M&As. I don't think there's any other junior mining CEO has done as many nickel deals as I have. And check out flynickel.com, and I'm very active on Twitter. You can search Twitter under John Lee Battery Metals. And of which I only talk about nickel, but other interviews and just the general market analysis that your viewers and audience might find useful.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I will definitely link those down in the video description below and your Twitter as well. And specifically this report, is that the August 21, is that the most recent report?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll link that one because it's for some that really want to get into the details of it. And yeah, looking over it, I see the 0.71% or the percentages you're referring to.
0.74.
0.74. Sorry. Okay. Yep. I see it. It looks like it's a very
Well, higher
promising
grade. Grade is
project.
king. Grade is king.
Yeah.
Location is everything. Grade is king. We have both. Higher grade means less material you have to dig out of the ground to produce the same amount of nickel. And there's also positive correlation between the grade and recovery. So having higher grade is a double positive. And now you get a higher recovery, and you have to mine less and process less materials to get the same amount of nickel. Jason.
Very good. Very good. Well, John, this has been great. I appreciate you coming on and sharing a little bit about the kind of the EV market in general and the role nickel will play. So, I mean, yeah, what would you say, like, if you're looking at it as far as an expansion growth percentage, how big, how much do you think nickel can grow over, if you're doing it year over year, looking
You
at it year
mean
over
for the
year?
project or for?
No, just nickel, the nickel market in general, not your project, but just the nickel market.
Well, if you think about it, current auto market is around 100 million automobiles, just cars, not even. And then you talk about trucks, heavy trucks, duty trucks, but just automobiles is about 100 million. So if you assume a 30% penetration of EV by say 2030, and that is fairly conservative, modest estimate, and that would spell for 30 million EV per year production. A EV is about 100 pounds per car. So you need about 3 billion pounds of nickel to satisfy to go into these batteries every year. Well, the current nickel production is 5 billion pounds. So you're looking at required increase of 60% more nickel just to feed into these monsters, into this brand new market. And that's why you're seeing, Jason, Australia typically don't come to Canada, but they've exhausted all the discoveries in Australia and coming up short in Canada, hunting for assets. And you have Tesla, you have Japanese, and you also have the Europeans that are stepping into Canada to look for nickel, because nickel sulphide, it's not a common occurrence where you can just it's out of Russia, it's out of China, it's out of Australia, out of Canada, and that's pretty much all for nickel sulphide. And that's why, as I said again, nickel sulphide really commands a premium, and it's an area that deserves attention from your audience. Jason?
Very good, very good. Well, there you go. There you go. That's John Lee of the FLYN Nickel Mining Corporation. Once again, I want to just thank you for coming on and hope you have a great rest of your week, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. Have a lot of fun. Hopefully, I can come on your show again to update.
I
Very bullish
would
the
love it.
nickel market. Nickel went from $10 to $50 in March. They're now settling back to $12. So you'd rather get into the market now and pay a little more, resting on major support, than to be paying a little less and then coming beneath the major resistance level, of which you might have to wait, as I did, for more than 12 years. So now I think it's a great time, very low risk entry point.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, once that construction news breaks, love to have you back on. That would be awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Okay, have a great one now.